want to talk to you about population decline, because you may hear, the World Economic Forum and other globalists saying we have population explosion. If population growth doesn't slow down, the planet is screwed. Population growth is what's responsible for the destruction of Mother Nature. Well, a new film says exactly the opposite, that we have a population decline crisis, and students at Cambridge University are protesting the movie that they have not seen. They're saying that they are speaking about population decline, that this movie even being shown is oppressive and hate speech. This film, which I just became aware of today, lays out a future for all of us that is like the film No Country for Old Men. It scares the shit out of me. I want to talk about it. Now, I'm not going to argue in favor or against population growth or decline. I'm going to present you with this theory and also show you why there are protesters against even discussing it. So as soon as someone protests discussing something, I want to discuss it, basically, is how that works. So buckle up. Here is the movie in question. It's called Birth Gap. Has these film festival accolades you can see. A student organizer invited the film's director, Stephen J. Shaw, to screen his film at Cambridge. It's supposed to happen this upcoming Friday. And so a vociferous student got wind of this and prompted a whole movement to stop it. It was activists, mostly trans activists, and we're going to sort of make this connection between population decline and transhumanism in a second. Now, I know this is hard to read. Here's what they say, their argument of why this film should be deplatformed at a university. It says, for the as of yet innocent, this is a documentary whose main point seems to be that feminism and modern society are actually going to cause civilization to collapse because women are not having enough babies, and that students and other young people need to be told that having babies is more important than anything else in life. This event is specifically targeted towards students, with staff being asked to give up their tickets if it is oversubscribed. The student in charge of organizing this is a somewhat prominent anti-trans activist who has written anti-trans articles, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so why do they care about this if you're trans rights activists? Why do you equate transphobic with population decline? This is actually not so hard to connect these dots. If you speak about biological reality, that women have babies, and that women having fewer babies is a problem, you have to acknowledge that reproductive reality, that we need sexed bodies to perpetuate the species. That is an uncomfortable truth for transhumanists. So they call this then anti-feminist. What they're trying to say is, for women, this will be very triggering because it will tell us that we should be having babies and we should be able to do whatever the heck we want. So that's an anti-feminist message. They say the film sort of puts the onus of population decline on women, and that's a hateful thing to do because in the modern world, now, when I was an academic, when I was getting my graduate degree, there was this idea that you publish a paper, if somebody didn't like it, they could rebut. That's what you do. You refute. You sit down, you have a conversation, or you publish a paper to rebut it. Well, now people who are too lazy to oppose ideology, they do not rebut, they cancel. Cancel is the new rebuttal. So that's why they want to deplatform this movie. They want it should not even be seen.
People are asking again, what's the name of the movie?
I'm going to show you the trailer for the movie. I should have told you that earlier, because as soon as you hear about this movie, you're like, what the heck? What is this? This is how I was today, all on the edge of my seat. So let's just watch it. This is the trailer for the film called Birth Gap.
Leading Americans of both parties put this ad in a Sunday paper. Whatever your cause, it's a lost cause unless we control population.
And our cities are going to be choked with people, and they will be impossible places in which to live, and the explosions will be even worse.
Most people think we have like too many people on the planet, but actually this is an outdated view.
Coming from the world of data science, I felt I understood populations are going up, and that's a problem. When I saw what was actually happening, I couldn't sleep.
I think that the biggest problem the world will face in 20 years is population collapse. Collapse.
I agree. All, without exception, all industrialized countries, developed countries have below replacement fertility.
Yeah, it's striking, and there is no single explanation. In different contexts, you have very different stories.
It's never happened in human history. There's no precedence.
What people usually don't think about is what you do in a world where the playgrounds are empty and the nursing homes are all full.
This 4-year project took me to 24 countries, and over 230 people were kind enough to give me an hour of their lives. I mean, how could it be that suddenly countries are having so few children? I needed to go and find out.
I'm kind of not ready.
We don't have any role model in a real world. I keep oscillating between the idea of having my own children or adopting.
Ready to adopt in this particular moment? Right now? Probably not.
If I would have kids now, I will have to change all my life.
The future is complicated.
Well, the weird thing is that many women want to have children.
So when would that be?
That's the crazy thing. I don't know.
何なんだろうってずっと考えてるんだけど、この2年経って分かんないのよ。何だったんだろうって。
I call this a birth gap map.
I haven't seen anybody do this before. Auf Wiedersehen.
Wow.
Gosh, it's kind of scary.
That's bad.
What I hear about often is overpopulation. I've never heard this concern.
Norge trenger flere barn.
My name is Jodie Day and I'm a childless woman.
It was devastating.
It's like a shock. What are we making with our future?
In life, I'm always optimistic about everything. But I'm not about this. I'm pessimistic. I'm pessimistic because I don't think people realize what's going to happen. And I don't know how and when it's going to stop.
I want to emphasize this. The biggest issue in 20 years will be population collapse.
Okay, that is not a narrative that we are told very often. We are told of sort of pockets of the world that have collapsing populations. Japan,
Italy,
Spain. In Spain, they have a word for it, España vacía, which means empty Spain is what they see there, population decline. But we're not told that this is a global thing. What we're told is that having babies overpopulates the world, and we're sort of contributing to that. And in fact, according to Shaw, over the past 70 years, there has been a global decline in fertility rates, with a total fall of 50%. In many parts of the world, fertility rates are now well below the replacement level of 2.1 babies per woman. So that's the calculation, is that as many people as you're losing at any given rate, each woman should be having 2.1. I had 3. I'm good. What about you? That spells out, though, population decline. Now, another reason the students are protesting this film is because the director was on Jordan Peterson's show recently. And Peterson, they call it contamination or politics by cooties is what it's called. Get it? So Jordan Peterson has cooties, according to woke ideologists.
Right.
So if you've been associated with him, you should be canceled.
Oh, so if you've spoken to Jordan, if you went on his show, then by proxy, you've got cooties.
Well, even more so, because the director of this film went on Jordan Peterson's show, and because this one student organizer would like him to come and show his film, she has cooties. By association, it's like head lice, basically. Woke head lice. So let's listen to her talk about the film and how she's facing activists who just simply won't be reasoned with. This is the woman who's inviting the film to come to Cambridge.
What did the students do to try and prevent this?
So initially they started booking, so the tickets are free, because I wanted every student who wanted to come to be able to come. First they started booking out the tickets in their sort of tens, and there's only sort of 150, and so they were just booking out the venue repeatedly.
So you'd get an empty room, effectively?
Yeah, exactly. And then they started to put hit pieces in the student newspaper, and the tactic of this is to intimidate other students and other staff out of going for fear of being associated with a misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, bigoted film.
Which is they've decided it's all that. They haven't seen it, right?
They haven't seen it. They couldn't have seen it because its full version is not online, and the bit that is online only deals with the economic side of the decline.
Right. So they're protesting against something they know nothing about, and they're protesting against a film that doesn't actually exist. It's in their minds.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how he's basically describing trolls. Like
yes, but powerful trolls
Yeah.
that are now reordering society.
Yeah.
Now, she says that the student newspaper did sort of a hit piece on her. I read it. It was very leading. And it said that this is an anti-feminist thing to say. Once you say there's population decline, that's anti-feminist. I just think I should remind you that women can't have babies on our own. Like, we can't do that. We're not amphibians that can impregnate ourselves. So I don't think that's necessarily an anti-feminist stance, because we need men to participate. Just a little biology lesson for you there. Here is how the protests are legit. Oh, she said the newspaper did a hit piece, called this anti-feminist. And then when she said, can I please respond with my own column, a rebuttal, like is done in civilized academics, they said no. And here's how the protests are legitimized. And then in this bit, they're going to bring in Stephen Shaw, the documentary filmmaker, as well.
I mean, students have said things as ludicrous as the film is a promotion of eugenics without ever saying why. And this is something that the student newspaper was sort of, they made these accusations and students were never asked to legitimize these things. But it's intellectually unsafe, and to some extent they think that they're physically unsafe.
I think the phrase intellectually unsafe is quite chilling in of itself. But Stephen J. Short, can I ask you about that? Because these students are accusing you of being pro-eugenics. That is an incredibly serious accusation that shouldn't be thrown around lightly, is it?
Well, I think anyone who's seen even part of the movie would quickly realize, in a sense, I don't mind, because those who do watch it, and I believe many will, part one's on YouTube right now. I encourage anybody. I didn't make this documentary for any other reason for people to understand what's happening to the planet. I think people will discover very, very quickly the emotional stories that come out from people across the world about their lives, young and those a little older, are real stories about real people, and the idea it's connected in any way to eugenics is simply nonsense.
Now, the film is supposed to be shown on Friday, but we're not sure now if it will, because look at what the university is putting on the student organizer to control the protests and the outrage. Watch.
Well, that's a big question. There's a big question mark over that at the moment. I'm having difficulties with the venue. They want me to ensure that a sort of 90-person protest that's currently being mounted, they want me to ensure that will have minimal effect on the venue, and this protest is going to be on a public street. Well, even the police have limited jurisdictions over a protest on a public street, so they've set these impossible standards by which I need to meet for this to go ahead.
This is a common fudge, though, where they'll say the security is the issue.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a university. It's a place where ideas are meant to be exchanged, isn't it? Yeah. So this should be their priority.
Well,
that was her answer.
Well,
she literally had nothing else to say. Like,
that ship has sailed.
It's so funny because that's like just pushing so much the narrative in like Fahrenheit 451.
Yes.
Where like, everybody gets so offended by everything that literally the only book left in existence that's legal is the Bible, and then everything else is gone. And so it's like why can't we have opinions out there that we don't like and just let them be?
And the idea that women have, maybe we should consider letting women have babies. How is that eugenics? Eugenics is the opposite, is like the perversion of human bodies.
Right. It's transhumanism.
Right. So how is
like
talking about population decline eugenics?
It's like what they're doing in Canada. Right, it's like the assisted suicide. That's what they're doing in Canada. Right, it's the perversion of that. Exactly.
So, can you connect the dots between talking about population decline and eugenics? What am I missing? Because she says they can't.
It's such a lazy.
Go ahead, David.
Well, I was just gonna say it's basically that's something that sticks in people's head as a talking point. So people don't need the proof that that's what it is. They don't need to know that's what it is. That's just a word that they can throw out to their cult or whatever it is, and they're just going to buy it hook, line, and sinker that that's what it is because that's what they said.
Yeah.
They do that all the time.
What were you saying, Philip? It's lazy?
I was going to say, yeah, it's lazy outrage. Like if you feel so compelled that this narrative is wrong, make your own damn documentary, or at the very least, make an argument against it. It's just laziness, is to be like, no, this shouldn't even be done. Nobody should, like this research this person did shouldn't be out there in people's heads. Even though it's actual research, it shouldn't be out there. That's just lazy outrage.
Yeah, I agree.
You rebut it.
Well, and when you have the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, which have admitted on camera to colluding with Google for search results and pushing this narrative that we have this climate crisis and a population crisis, so therefore you need to have 15-minute cities, we need to control your food supply, we need to take your farms. It's all part of the control. It doesn't make sense then for them to say, go out and have babies.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't fit with their narrative that we need to restrict, we need to have sustainability, we need to be less wasteful, we need to consume less, you will own nothing, we need to turn down your power consumption by 30%. So you can't add a baby to the mix because now you're going to have to heat a baby's room too?
Yeah.
To feed a baby on top of that? So
not if you're like our one neighbor. We're not going to get in.
Oh, yeah.
Although,
I love how you yell at me about not being able to talk about this. This guy was a total asshole.
Okay, don't, because I just was gonna. Okay, now I want to point out that Stephen Shaw is a demographer. He studies populations. That's what that job is. These activists, they don't do that. They are just screaming about the world as they want it to be. And the validation of their concerns by the university and by these media outlets speaks volumes to what we are asking other people to believe. We're asking other people to believe that biology is not real. And if we see a film that indicates it is, we must cancel it. We are being asked to believe that we should deny our need to propagate the species as humans, as any species does. Every species does that, right? That's all they do is work to like I spend a lot of time watching my beehive. That's what species want to do, is protect and propagate their species.
And guys, that's not a euphemism.
No, I have a real beehive.
She has a real beehive.
And I spend a lot of time watching them. It's very entertaining. Also, I think they want us to believe that there's no joy in the nuclear family. There are a lot of people who make a lot of money if we believe that. For instance, the transhumanist agenda, which feeds into the biopharmaceutical agenda. So believing that hands somebody a lot of power. It's not you, by the way. This is something that we're asked to get on board with over and over again in Western culture, that family is not necessary, that two-parent families are not necessary, that children don't need, biological parents at all, that spending time together as a family is not a necessity. And in fact, even the Black Lives Matter website, when it was still live, said this about the family: we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable with. Not fathers, screw them. The Western prescribed nuclear family should be disrupted. This is what we're being asked to subscribe to in Western culture. Yeah.
DSWP in our chat says Russia has none of these problems. That's an interesting...
I'm sure Russia has problems. I do want to talk about how they address population decline in just a minute. So thank you for bringing that up. And I think it's great to be accepting of people who have different family structures because of circumstances. That's wonderful. But should we aim as a society not to have something that propagates the species, that brings about joy? I think this is why it was so shocking this weekend when two-time Super Bowl champion Harrison Butker from the Kansas City Chiefs said this in his commencement speech in Georgia last week. And when he said this, it sort of went viral because people were like, you can't say that. Watch what he says.
Can't say this in America.
Our culture is suffering. We all see it. It doesn't matter which political persuasion you sit on or whether you are a person of deep faith or not. Anyone with eyes can see that something is off. Studies have shown one of the many negative effects of the pandemic is that a lot of young adults feel a sense of loneliness, anxiety, and depression, despite technology that has connected us more than ever before. It would seem the more connected people are to one another, the more they feel alone. I'm not sure the root of this, but at least I can offer one controversial antidote that I believe will have a lasting impact for generations to come. Get married and start a family. Wow. I will say this is the most important ring I have right here. Having kicked the game-winning field goal in both the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl, I have received a great deal of praise for these successes. They just announced that this Super Bowl was the most watched football game of all time, and yet all of this happiness is temporary. And the truth is, none of these accomplishments mean anything compared to the happiness I have found in my marriage and in starting a family.
Now, this is interesting that that's a controversial thing to say in the year 2023. So much so that students protest the very suggestion that not having a family may cause regret.
It's amazing to hear him like say that kind of like trepidatiously. He's like, can I say that? And oh, there's some smattering of applause here that family is important. Like, how did we fall so far away from that?
Well, I think that there are some people who want to be well-intentioned of like, oh, you're a single family, you're a family of divorce, you know, like, let's make people feel legitimate. And that's wonderful to, you know, not make people feel bad if they don't have this. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you disrupt, that you disrupt it either, because it comes with a social consequence. You know, even if you are not a romantic person and you don't love the idea of sharing your life with somebody, every parenting book that I have ever read, and I've read copious amounts of them, says that they cannot underestimate the value in a child of eating dinner with both parents. If you can, it's invaluable. Time together, staying together is, you know, the data shows that these things are very good for a child, whether you want to be married or not. These things are irrefutable. But if you don't have that circumstance, absolutely, everyone wants to be accepting, right? But that doesn't mean that we tear down something in order to legitimize other people's situations or reorder society. Now, interestingly enough, I appreciate the comment that we just had about how Russia doesn't have these problems. Now, I don't know what it's like to live in Russia. I've never even been there. But they do actually have a program in place to address population decline since Putin came into office. He started a program where women have been given a stipend if they have children before the age of 25 in order to encourage population growth and presumably have babies before you're too tired, like I did. Now, look at the number of families that have received these benefits since 2007. It used to be that this was offered only for the first child. And then you see in about 2020, it started to be offered for the second child as well. And what is that gray line? For the second and every other child. So you are actually paid a government stipend. It's not like, money to have a baby. It's money to use on this baby. I was pointed this out from the I, Earl Grey YouTube channel creator, Mike Jones, who does live in Russia. He says that this stipend can be used for healthcare, for private school if you'd like, or if you want to buy a house, you can get a government subsidy on the mortgage, and then the child becomes part owner of the home with a share in the ownership, which is brilliant, right? Because your whole family then is investing in your house. And has it worked? Well, take a look at Russia's population. They had a very steep curve in population decline and were predicted this blue sort of precipitous drop. But since around the early 2000s, the drop started to level out and the decline stopped. The red line at the bottom is annual predicted growth rate. And it looks like the growth rate will stop falling. So you could call that a success. It is sort of prevented total population annihilation. Now, I'm not saying we should all live in Russia. I don't know much about it. But what I am saying is that one side of the planet is being incentivized to have a family and one side is not. Right. Fully one side of the planet, right? One side of the planet is doing something about it, and one side of the planet is telling us it's not a problem. Who is right? This is the question I'm asking. Now, I'm very interested, and I said I wasn't going to sort of prove population decline or population explosion. That's not for me to do right now, but I have invited the documentary filmmaker on the show. I very much would like to hear what his data says.
Yeah, and it's available on YouTube, right?
Only the first part.
Yeah.
This is a several part documentary. And so what she was saying is that like the people who protested it had only seen the first part, which was just a sort of economic implications of population decline, nothing to do with feminism at all. And so they couldn't have seen it. So maybe we'll get the second part soon. I'd love to know how you feel about this in the chat. If you feel like, oh, I've been told population explosion is a big problem, this is a disruptor.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.